But there is a choice between a Labour foreign policy rooted in our belief that strength at home depends on our partnerships abroad and whatever chaotic right-wing ideology we end up facing at the next election, with politicians who are happy for us to surrender our national interests or slide into isolation. Because while we are standing up to Putin, Nigel Farage calls him the leader he most admires. While we are strengthening the NATO alliance, they trot out Russian propaganda claiming NATO caused the war. And while we opened our hearts and our homes to Ukrainian children, their policy is to turn them away. While we do new trade deals underpinned by international law, they want to rip up those rules and lose the jobs and investment we need. And while we work together to renew Britain, they tour the world seeking every opportunity to run our country down. Because unlike the plastic patriots in Reform, we in Labour are proud to be British, proud of our values, and we know what our flag really means. Ask those overseas what it means to them when they see the Union Jack or the St George's Cross, and you'll hear people in every continent talk with admiration about our royal family and our parliament, our heritage and our culture, our armed forces and our universities, the literature, music, film and sport that we've given the world, the British inventions that have changed history. But even more than that, they will tell you that our flags stand for justice, for fairness, for tolerance and for decency. A flag on the side of an army truck that's meant the difference between life and death for people facing massacre in Sierra Leone or Kosovo. A flag on the side of a crate that's brought vaccines and medicine, food and water to those in desperate need. And a flag on the diplomatic table that means a trading partner you can trust and an ally who will never let you down. That is what our flag means to our friends around the world, the way our country comes together and not divided.
Yvette Cooper used a major foreign policy address to draw a sharp contrast between Labour's internationalist approach and what she cast as the chaotic right-wing ideology of Reform UK and its allies. Her remarks came as Labour seeks to project both moral authority and geopolitical seriousness ahead of the next election. In a speech that blended defense of multilateralism with sharp political attack lines, Cooper argued that strength at home depends on our partnerships abroad. She contrasted Labour's stance with that of right-wing populists, accusing them of undermining Britain's interests on the world stage. Cooper went on to link foreign policy choices to economic outcomes. She portrayed Labour as pursuing new trade deals underpinned by international law and attracting jobs and investment, while condemning opponents for wanting to rip up those rules and lose the jobs and investment we need. The speech underscores Labour's strategy of presenting itself as both pro-NATO and pro-business, while framing right-wing populists as reckless and isolationist. It also signals an effort to rally voters around a narrative that ties Britain's domestic renewal to its international standing. A message designed to appeal to centrists and swing voters who want stability after years of political turbulence. As the election approaches, Cooper's remarks suggest that Labour intends to draw a stark choice between global engagement and nationalist retreat, betting that voters will prefer the former in an era of geopolitical uncertainty. Now we will immediately see what the party leader has to say.
Zia, I pull you up on what Reform UK's policy is when it comes to scrapping indefinite leave to remain for non-EU citizens? What is Reform's policy on people coming from Hong Kong, let's say, or Ukraine, who have been given specific rights to come to the United Kingdom under specific refugee status schemes?
Yeah, sure. So let's address those in turn. For people who came here from Hong Kong on what's known as a BNO, O being overseas territory visa, those people, a significant percentage of them would qualify for that renewal of the work visa that we're talking about. We're talking about introducing a 5-year renewable visa. For those that don't, there will be a humanitarian route available to them. And I want to be clear as well, there will be a path, there will continue to be a path, of course, for people to become naturalized British citizens. In terms of the Ukrainians, there isn't a path. Those visas do not have a path to ILR, actually at the request of the Ukrainian government, no less. So those people are not in any way subject to the policy we're talking about. But let's be clear about this. Last year alone, people watching this program had to pay £9 billion last year alone in the form of taxes to pay for universal credit welfare payments for people who are foreign nationals, and that number is going to balloon over the coming 5 to 10 years as a result of this Boris wave. The 3.8 million people who came to this country, despite Boris telling everyone he was going to reduce immigration, he instead turned on the afterburners, and there is an enormous cost to that. The cost of that is hundreds of billions of pounds. It is unconscionable, absolutely unacceptable to expect the people watching this program to have to shell out to pay for those people to live off the state for the rest of their lives, which is what happens when you grant them indefinite leave to remain. So our policy is simple. We expect, and Nigel Farage, if he's Prime Minister, he will expect migrants to pay their way, speak English, and not commit crime. The fact that Keir Starmer thinks such a policy is racist says far more about him than it does about the British people.
No, you make the point that a huge proportion, more than half of the migrants who've come over here under the so-called Boris waves are not net contributors. They're earning less than the median salary. But the fact is that many of those people are working in essential jobs. For the NHS, for example, they're maybe earning low salaries and therefore getting their salaries topped up by universal credit and other benefits. But nevertheless, they are performing essential roles. Some people are concerned that if they were all forced to leave in a very short space of time, it would cripple the NHS and social services. What's your response to that?
My response to that is, in our policy announcement, we explicitly introduced the concept of an acute skills shortage visa. These are visas that would be issued to people who are fulfilling functions that have a national critical role, and the people you're talking about would fulfill that. But here's what Reform are going to do differently, that for some insane reason has not happened for decades in this country. For every single one of those visas that are issued to fulfill an acute skills shortage, a commensurate accelerated training place must be created for a British person to ultimately fulfill that role. And in doing so, what happens is that short-term foreign labour that is needed to be brought in to fill those roles ultimately breeds long-term capacity. We've had the opposite in this country. We have 6.5 million people. Miriam, you know this better than anyone because you're across these numbers. You've done a lot of work in the welfare space. 6.5 million British people currently claiming out-of-work benefits, only a third of whom are even actively seeking work. One of the reasons why this is the case is because business has the ability to turn on the taps to unlimited, dirt cheap foreign labour. And we have a message for business. We are pro-business, we want business to thrive, but we are putting them on notice. If the British people see fit to deliver a Reform majority at the next general election, and Nigel's the Prime Minister, the era of unlimited, dirt cheap foreign labour to undercut British workers is over.
Wazir, speaking